Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu pakhair agale ni hao churashumme washmale. Wahaya gonzaimas guten morgen. Hola, boyo, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore. Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaba. Buna mucho gracias. Wabi balli kare aaya. Hoş geldin and ayo sayo. Khuyamora chivato chi halyut kalimera khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajar, Assalamu Alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum Assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. Jazakallah khair. And in our lives, we always experience highs and lows, ups and downs, the moments where we're feeling really high on the Iman, and then there are moments where we're feeling really low on the Iman, right? So how do you maintain that consistency in your Iman? Because Iman is a state of mind where it's constantly fluctuating between highs and lows, and obviously when the low moment hits in, it is the time that we want to revert back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most, right?
Exactly. So, since you've asked me this question and, and you've caught me off guard, and this is something which I might have experienced just very recently as well. So for me, it's different. For me, what happens is that unfortunately, if my conscious able tells me that, this is something which you did and you shouldn't have done that, and, Allah might not be happy with it. I'm not going to say that Allah's not happy with me.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not what anybody wants as well. But, if I think that, that something went wrong and, I shouldn't have done it. So what I do is that every time that when I'm praying, I'm like, Allah, please, forgive me. We are humans. You know that we are weak and whatnot. So I kind of repent about it. I kind of, stay in sujood and ask for repentance, and I seek forgiveness from the Creator, Allah Almighty. And then eventually, you start to feel better. You're like, okay, because why not to think that, okay, Allah has forgiven you? I think that this is something which has always helped me in recovering myself, being a better person every single day, thinking that because Allah loves you more than 70 mothers, or probably beyond that as well, ladies and gentlemen, it's always good to think that Allah has forgiven you, and why not start the day on a very positive note. What about you?
That's very true. Thank you so much for saying that, because we always experience, we are humans and to err is a man, right? It's a famous English maxim. We always make mistake. And yes, we are sinful people living on this earth, but I think the most important thing is that how we revert back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has 99 different names, right? And those are very powerful names. I think we don't understand the power and the omnipresence between those names, and I think the best thing is that you make a beautiful dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by his 99 different names, right? So if you want to repent, call him Al-Ghaffar, because he is Al-Ghaffar. He is the most forgiving person, and Allah forgives a lot of time, right? And
exactly. And in addition to that, there's this one name as well which I would want people to kind of, recite the most, and that is Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum.
Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum.
So please make sure that you do that as well, because ladies and gentlemen, you really need to make sure that you continue with that zikr. And zikr, while you're doing it, please do it on your fingers, because while you'll be in your grave, these fingers will illuminate and will provide you light as well.
And they will be your witness to the fact that, you were praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you were remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, I mean, as a human, it's also a human nature that whenever someone calls to our help, or someone is validating us, or someone is appreciating us, we always feel happy, right? And I think dua has that power that it can always go across the earth where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resides. So never underestimate the power of your dua, and never underestimate that Allah is listening, because he is Al-Sami, right? He is the listening being, right? So always make sure that whenever we are doing something wrong, go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, repent, and make sure that you have a corrective behavior, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much, Hajar, for alluding to it so beautifully. And for every Muslim who's out there, please make sure that you continue to do that. And meanwhile, I'll move on towards what we are talking about today. So there's one more thing, Hajar, which I would want to share with you. I'm very sorry that I have to do it on here, because only I can hear the producer. But I guess these necklaces that you have are actually touching the mic and might be disturbing the sound as well. But today there's one more thing which we are discussing. Obviously, we've heard about it, that dilon ka sukoon Allah ke zikr mein hai. But while we are over here on this planet Earth living this life, ladies and gentlemen, this cardiovascular activity we do know is very important. But while we're at it, we might be having junk food, we might be under stress, there might be hypertension, there might be so many other issues which we can control only if we are able to test it. We do have an expert over here, ladies and gentlemen, who will be joining us. and he will be sharing his insight whether how flu can be so dangerous for people. You know, this is something which I never knew in 36 years of my life, that flu unfortunately can be the reason of an increase in the heart attack instances
Yes.
or incidences for that matter. So ladies and gentlemen, to talk about this, we're very lucky that we've been joined by the consultant cardiologist Dr. Asad Akbar Khan Sahab. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Can we have you over here? Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Wonderful to have you over here. Please take your seat. Meanwhile, we would like to go to our seats as well. So, first of all, how are you?
I'm good, Ji. Thank you very much. How are
Thank
you?
you so much for having you over here. You know, it's wonderful to have you over here. And while we are talking about hearts and whatnot, how does your heart feel today?
My heart is okay so far. Thank you.
My heart is
Right.
okay so far. It's wonderful. So very quickly, let's get started with the the information which I've just provided to our viewers, and that is that because it came to me as a surprise for the very first time in my life that I've ever heard from a doctor saying, or a cardiologist or a consultant cardiologist, that flu can actually lead towards a heart attack.
Yes. So again, thank you for inviting me. While we were discussing all this backstage, the reason I mentioned it to you is because when we are practicing in the West, this is like a norm. All the public awareness regarding this flu issue is pretty good, and people themselves would bring themselves and their elderlies to the hospital to get flu vaccination. In Pakistan, there is a severe lacking of this knowledge. So the way flu works is that it's not just a viral illness that will cause you some runny nose and blocked nose and stuff like that for a few days and it will go away. It sort of instigates or it triggers a process of inflammation, jisko Urdu mein you can call sojan, in the entire body. And when this inflammation or sojan infects or causes irritation of the lining of the heart's blood arteries, it can cause heart attacks. And the way we were discussing about it backstage, when there was all this hoo-ha about COVID, a lot of these people who were sort of not really receptive of the dangers of COVID virus, people brought these numbers up that actually the causes or the chances of patients dying from flu are much higher than from COVID virus. And the reason is that flu affects the heart in multiple ways, and one of them is increasing the risk
But
of
my
heart attack.
observation, Dr. Saab, is very different. Now, my observation throughout the COVID period was that, around me forever, my family members, my extended family, since the time that COVID came in, and since the time that we were out of that danger zone as well, I never came across anybody who had flu.
Yeah,
So the incidences of flu weren't there really.
Yeah, I think flu or even COVID, a lot of people sort of were in denial. People refused to get the COVID testing done unless it was made mandatory for some procedure in the hospital, or if they had to pass through immigration and stuff like that, they had to get COVID done, and a lot of them came out to have COVID virus when they thought they had nothing.
True.
So flu has sort of become a part of our life, and we don't really care about it. We just think of it as something that will just pass by. So I think flu was still there. People were saying that because now there is COVID, there is no dengue and there is no flu. I think all those illnesses were still there, but they were just put in the background. They were still there.
Right. So, Dr. Saab, you mentioned about the West, and obviously we know that the temperatures are very freezing there as compared to South Asia or Pakistan. So, when you talk about that you're more at risk of angina or heart diseases, especially in the winter. So, how cold it needs to get to be for your heart to get affected, and especially in the context of Pakistan, because we know that we don't have that sort of freezing temperatures as that in West.
Yeah. So luckily we don't get those sort of freezing temperatures, but once the temperature goes to anywhere near like minus below 10s and stuff like that, what happens is that especially in people like us who are not used to those sort of temperatures, our lungs and the lining of our lungs is not able to cope with the sudden change in temperature, especially when you go from a heated environment like inside the studio and your house, you suddenly get exposed to cold air outside, it causes a sudden bronchoconstriction, or it causes sudden narrowing of your air passages. Patients who are hyper responsive to this sudden change are called asthmatics. Asthma is really not a disease, it's just a hyper responsiveness to cold air or any stimulant. So when anything like this happens, it causes a surge in the stress hormones in your body. These surges in the body are responsible for most of the heart attacks, even in the middle of the night. In a normal human being, there are 2 times in the day when these stress hormones are released. One is around 3 or 4 a.m. when we are asleep, and then the second surge comes around 11 to 12. These 2 surges are meant to sort of get our body ready to start working in the day. The 3 or 4 o'clock surge is meant to get our bodies ready to start working around early morning, 5 or 6 o'clock. And then the second surge is to get our body get through the afternoon part. But these surges suddenly cause the blood pressure and heart rates to go up, and that's the reason why we see a lot of heart attacks early morning. You also see a lot of deliveries happening, pregnancies or getting the labor periods and labor pains starting in those same hours, and that's the same mechanism.
And you know, so connecting with this, you know, this is something which I might have experienced myself, and you know, while you've spoken about it, so it just came up, it popped up in my mind, and that is that, you know, at times I do think that people might come across this situation. I'm not sure, I'm talking about myself over here, and that is that all of a sudden you wake up during the night and you think that your heartbeats increase, you know. So why does that happen, and do you think that has to do anything with your heart health as well?
Yeah, so if for like I'm sure just what you are trying to allude to is if you get woken up by a sudden sound or something, or a bell or a phone ringing or something like that, those sort of stimuli cause the same.
जब जोर से आवाज देती है ना मुझे, शहजाद
that's normal. That is how it's supposed to happen. But like for these palpitations that you experience, this is again exactly because of the same. Sudden stimulus in the middle of complete silence, especially when you are asleep, which wakes you up, it causes exactly the same stimulus. It causes the increase in stress hormones. That sudden release of stress hormones causes not only your heart rate to go up, it will cause your blood pressure to go up. These hormones are meant to sort of help your body get used, get ready for whatever is about to come next.
Right, and also let's explore in the Pakistani context, for example, the smog, which is a very pertinent feature nowadays, especially in the Lahore, and the people who are used to getting the morning walks. So let's explore these conditions at the intersection of heart diseases. Do you think people who are going for the morning walks, especially in the smog, are at the more risk of the heart diseases?
I think smog will cause inflammation in the lung area, in the lining of the lungs, and any sort of inflammation in the body will increase the risk of heart attacks as well as stroke. Both of them, the blood channels or the arteries which supply your brain and the heart muscle are made of same fabric. So the same mechanism affects both of them. Any severe infection, any sudden increase in inflammation in the body can cause a stroke or a heart attack.
Exactly, and you know, since Hajra actually talked about early morning walks and whatnot, and I was in Lahore myself, and believe you me, you know, it's even difficult to speak over there, so you can imagine, you know, what the kind of impact that it's going to have on you, on your body, on your offsprings as well, because I've seen kids, you know, kind of, the situation is really challenging over there in Lahore, unfortunately. But now, you know, before the morning walk, coming back to where we were talking about how, you know, while you're sleeping and you get these stress hormones which actually help your body to work, you know, there are a couple of things that, you know, I've noticed that at times when you sleep, and even if your posture is not right, you wake up with a numb hand or a numb leg or a numb foot, and you don't know what's happening, and then you just have to, you know, kind of move and whatnot. Does it have to do anything with your heart?
No, so it's nothing to do with the heart. It's totally to do with the posture that you have. So we have some of the nerves, or in Urdu we call them nade. These nerves are the ones, are basically parts of the body which are responsible to tell your brain where each part of the body is lying. And if, especially the pain stimulus or anything, that even if we are pricked by a needle or something like that, this stimulus from the tip of the needle goes to the brain first, and then from the brain the message comes back to the finger to move it away. So this pathway that brings that tells the brain that something is going wrong is running under the skin in most of the areas.
Okay.
And if that particular part of the skin is compressed because of the weight of the head or anything, that will go numb because of constant stimulation.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is free it up a bit, move it around, and it comes back.
And Dr. Saab, let's I think talk about a trend that is very worrying, and I've observed especially among the younger generation that they are more, I've seen lots of cases where the younger generation are getting the angina and the heart attacks, and we generally think as a lay person, of course, you will illuminate us more, that the heart conditions or heart diseases, they do not affect young people as much because they have relatively newer, what do I say, engine inside,
Yeah.
and they are more active
Muscles
and
are better,
proactive.
yeah.
Yes, yes, as compared to older persons. So, what is contributing towards this rise, especially among the younger generation?
I think two things. One, probably the biggest contributor to this is our genes. The entire Southeast Asian belt, we are unfortunately affected by genes which, because of which our body cannot get rid of the extra cholesterol that is being made. Cholesterol is an essential part of the structure of our cells. Every day, the basic structure or the basic bricks of the body are called cells. They get broken down and then they get remade. The remade ones, the cement in the structure of these cells is cholesterol. So our body makes over 1100 milligrams of cholesterol. A person who eats niharis and pies every day, the maximum cholesterol they can consume is roughly 300 milligrams. So our body is making more than 3 times of it every day itself. What happens is
And then you don't exercise, you don't move, you're
yes,
lazy.
so your cell breakdown is going to be less, so less of it is going to be consumed. So in people, especially in the West, their genes, the way it's made is the extra cholesterol that is being made gets excreted out in our feces or stool. Unfortunately, the problem with our belt is that that mechanism that gets rid of that extra cholesterol is deficient. So because of that, we see people suffering from heart attacks at a much earlier age. And then the second part is exactly as you said, lack of exercise, fast food and everything. One thing that I want everybody to know, that if you have heart disease in your family, especially early 50s and 40s is when your parents or your brothers or sisters or siblings had heart attacks, in every subsequent generation there is a phenomenon called anticipation. In every subsequent generation there is a likelihood that the heart attacks are going to come at a much earlier age. So if you have parents like that, or if you are yourself suffering from heart attacks and you were a pretty young guy at the time, you need to get your children screened for high cholesterol. And now the recommendations from American College of Cardiology as well as European Society of Cardiology are, if you have a history like that and if your kids even in their teens have a high cholesterol, they should be started on treatment.
All right, so I think it's a wonderful message for everybody who's out there, and it is our responsibility as parents to look after our kids and ourselves in the first place, because people do not have this habit of getting themselves tested. This is one thing which I would want people to kind of know about. Now the second bit of it, and that is, since we're talking about niharis, we're talking about cholesterol, we're talking about
Parathas,
beef nihari and paratha and whatnot. We do know it's shadi season, right? Everywhere you go this time around, there might be probably 10 cards of shadi invitations at your place as well, at yours and at mine as well. So what people do is that throughout the year they might be probably making sure that, okay, I'm going to be very selective with my food choices, but as soon as it's shadi season, even if it's my chachu who's got sugar, he's having gulab jamun, he's having jalebis over there, so how do you think that it's going to have an impact specifically, in another conversation or in another dimension, that people who actually have weakened heart muscles?
Again, excellent question. I think it's
Thank you
very
so much.
important in our culture. It's that's why I say it's excellent. Yeah. So it's the reason I requested you to ask this was because in our outpatient our outpatients are flooded with patients who are coming in because of these two problems. So one is the problem, and then I'll give you a solution so that patients, it's not like a totally dark alley for patients who have weakened heart muscle. The reason patients with weakened heart muscle suffer the most is because when we eat niharis and pies and stuff, one element of that our mind registers is the cholesterol part, the fat part. The fat part affects the blood arteries or the brain's blood channels over 8, 10, 15 years. So consumption of fat, like in terms of desi ghee and stuff, affects the heart for sure, but over a long period of time. Consumption of extra salt can trigger a mechanism where, especially patients who have a weakened heart muscle or patients who suffer from high blood pressure, they can have an effect within a few hours. And these are the patients who suffer the most. Once a patient with a weakened heart or patient which we call as heart failure patients, they enter the hospital and they have to be admitted. Every time they get admitted and they get treated and they get discharged, their heart never comes back to where it was before that. It always ends up weaker than the time it was. And if you have 2 or 3 admissions in the heart because of heart failure in the hospital, your life expectancy suddenly goes down big time by years. And just one extra consumption of salt can lead to all that. So the way you can fix it is if by I think there are 2 mechanisms by which you can fix it. One, the way the heart works, the body works, is the amount of salt that you're consuming affects the body by the amount that you take over a week. So if you know that you're going to go out, eat on the weekend, maybe for the whole week before and the whole week after that, you bring your salt consumption totally down.
Okay.
As I said, fat consumption for a few days, especially if you're taking your cholesterol tablets, will not affect your health that much. So I'm not worried about that. It's mainly the salt that affects it. And then secondly, if you do end up taking it, make sure that you don't drink too much water after it, because that is the reason why if you take high salt food, you feel thirsty, you will be waking up in the middle of the night to drink more water, and that triggers the
Just
whole
like
cascade.
after going to a Chinese restaurant, you know, you go back home, you're like, yeah, what's happening to me? I'm so thirsty. You know, so sir, since you've spoken about it, that this is something that we really need to do, and you talked about cholesterol medicine as well. Do you think that there's any generic cholesterol medicine available for everybody, you know, to use out there, whether they have higher cholesterol or not? Because you just said it, so I don't want my viewers to kind of go haywire.
Yeah, so for every medicine has its side effects.
Okay.
So there's nothing generic that is going to totally give you all the benefits with no side effects.
Yeah.
So all medicines have side effects. They have to be balanced. As I said, consumption of extra fat for 2 or 3 days when you are eating a pretty balanced food for the rest of the week is not that harmful. So you should not be just taking these cholesterol tablets. Number 2, when you're talking about generic, the commonest drug prescribed in the world is not aspirin, it is a cholesterol medicine. So it is very prevalent. Cholesterol issue is prevalent.
Which
because
one
of
is
the-
it though, by the way?
It's not one. It's called it's a group of drugs called statins.
But we are
It's-
not recommending it to anybody who's out there who's
Yeah.
listening to us, you know, until unless you go to a doctor and a doctor prescribes you that medicine, only then you're supposed to use it. Yes.
Right. So, Dr. Saab, do people respond differently to the winter, especially who have heart conditions? How do they respond, and how to protect oneself, especially in the winter season?
Yes, everybody responds differently, but we know for a fact that people who are 65 years and above, or who have a previous history of heart attacks, or a weakened heart muscle, or a stroke,
Right.
they will respond way worse to a flu infection or to a sudden exposure of cold than patients who are younger. So I think the foremost thing is that all these patients who are at risk of heart illnesses should get vaccinated with flu vaccine in probably late August or September. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks for the vaccine to take its effect, and the
Right.
effect lasts for about 6 months. So
Right.
that will get you through this winter season.
And while we're speaking about the vaccine as well, do you think that, you know, for any heart patient out there, it is convenient for them to get that vaccine for themselves? Because imagine that what if it has adverse effects for some cases as well, number one. Number two, right after COVID, because, you know, this is where we started our conversation from, we have seen that there's been a prevalence of atrial fibrillation in elderly people too. So, you know, so let's talk about both of these issues.
Yeah. So the risk of having an adverse effect to a vaccine is very low.
Okay.
It's like 1 in a million and things like that. So there will definitely be some. So that's for the serious reactions. Most people will get a bit of flu-like illness actually itself. They might get a slight
It happened with
pain or
me.
temperature.
Yeah. I was like, I got the flu shot, and the next day I had flu. I
Yeah.
was like, well, what's happening?
It's actually the way the vaccines work is most of them will trigger the same body response as your body will respond to a flu virus, but to a less intensity. So, but some people will get the same sort of symptoms.
All right.
And then the second part was this atrial fibrillation
Yep.
part. So any inflammation in the body will increase the risk of atrial fibrillation, as we were discussing earlier. The commonest reason for patients who develop atrial fibrillation, for people who don't know what it is irregular heartbeat, and for which doctors will prescribe you a blood thinner and a medicine to control the heart speed. The commonest or the most common reason for it is increasing age.
Okay.
There is a lot of research work on
Can
it.
it be stress, tea, coffee,
Yes,
chocolates?
all of these will add to it.
Okay.
All of these, but if somebody who's 20 years of age is, you throw the same amount of stress and caffeine at that guy versus somebody who's over 40 or 50, that guy is going to, a person who is more older.
Don't scare us, we're just around 40 now.
Let's make it 50, yeah? So people who are 50 and above. But the reason I'm saying is that there is a lot of research on it. We know patients who are above 40 years of age, every fourth person is going to have atrial fibrillation at some point in their life. So it's a very common issue, very well described, so it can easily be treated.
Exactly. So very quickly, sir, solutions which you would recommend for great heart health, you know, to enjoy a lovely life, an amazing life with your loved ones. And do you think that love will actually play a role for your heart to be sound and smooth and beat the way it's beating?
Yes, exactly. I think regarding love, I think if anything that reduces the stress hormone level will definitely impact the heart health in the long run. There are loads of studies. In fact, one study which comes to my mind is that they had, which was done in US, patients who were 65 years and above. They had similar illnesses, but patients who lived longer were the ones who had a very good company of friends.
Wow.
Again, marital life is important and stuff, but what they found in that particular group was the group of friends, a strong support system was the one which made them live longer.
जब पाकिस्तान में 60 सालों के बाद मियाँ बेगम की बनते हुए देखी नहीं है.
So I think maybe that's why support system is what you need.
Exactly, that's wonderful. And what should we do for great heart health?
Yes, for heart health, I think regular walk from heart side of things, what's proven is at least an average of 7,500 steps a day for heart health.
Right.
For general physical health, you can do 10,000 and whatever you want. But anything less than 2,500 steps in a day means you're going to die younger and you're going to die earlier. And then in terms of consumption of food, again, salt intake should be reduced, not completely finished, but like it should be reduced. And in terms of the diet that you're taking, it should be balanced. It's an average of a week's diet that affects your heart. So if you're going to go out, make it once a week, and for the rest of the week, eat at home.
Exactly, it's too expensive anyways as well. Yeah. So I think that it's going to be.
And smoking, no smoking.
Yeah.
Nothing in the world has been able to become an antidote for smoking. So
yeah, so no smoking, and please make sure that you're not even, you know, in an environment where there's smoke as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And ladies and gentlemen, me and Haja, every day, you know, we are on this mission to make sure that we make our audiences more aware of the fact that how they're going to live healthier. Well, not just that, you know, there are other areas that we touch, and they will be discussed right after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we were talking about some very interesting topics. So I remember when I was a student, especially when I was in the university, as a student you experience lots of different things, lots of different phases of the life, and obviously lots of different sets of challenges as a student. But I was fortunate enough that I was a day scholar, so I did not have the problems that the hostelites face. But lots of people, lots of students who are residing in Islamabad, they might face the accommodation issues, because not every university has a good accommodation inside, right? And obviously the people who have come from the different parts of Pakistan to study in Islamabad, because Islamabad offers very good opportunities in terms of the academia. So what sort of problems do they face, especially when it comes to their hostel life? Are there spaces available for them? And if not, within their universities, so what sort of spaces are available, and do they have to walk to the universities, and what sort of problems they do encounter when it comes to their traveling and whatnot? And especially when you are a student, you're always short on money, and especially hostel life, because you're not earning
even
at that time.
Even when you're not a student, I think you short on money at times.
Yes,
as
nowadays
well.
because of the global inflation.
Yes.
But alhamdulillah, we have lots of things to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're going to discuss all of these topics with a very esteemed guest of ours who has graced his presence presence inside our studio. He happens to be Professor Adil Nasir. He is an educationist and also a geologist. Assalamu alaikum and thank you so much for coming to our show.
You're most welcome.
Right, so we do see that there are lots of hostels that have proliferated across the academic blocks, especially in front of the university. So what is their legal status?
You know, the geographic location of Islamabad is the students from all over the Pakistan coming to Islamabad for a good education, for a standard and quality education. But when they come to Islamabad, they are feeling lot of problems. First of all, we know that our economical situation of the country in the existing circumstances or in the existing state of affairs, it is very difficult for a student to bear a huge expense in Islamabad. So they move to the hostel side. When they move to the hostel side, they are feeling lot of problems. Right? So there are number of hostels in Islamabad. You have asked me the legal status. The legal status of hostels is basically if we go to the bylaws of CDA, CDA is not allowing any students who are living in the residential area. They are saying that it's a non-conforming use. So according to my opinion, it's a residential place. You can use house just for the residential purpose. So it's not a not a commercial, it's a residential.
Right. And let's talk about the role of judiciary in that, because we were having that discussion in the break and you talked about that this is a subjudicial matter.
Yes.
So what exactly is the problem and what sort of solutions are required to encounter?
Right. Basically in Islamabad, hostels are running just since I think 2000 or 2002. But at that time there were a small number of hostels in Islamabad. But right now, because population is increasing, as well as universities in Islamabad are also increasing. So if we keep in mind the fact and figure, there are number of students available in Islamabad in the residential areas. So in 2016, some hostel owners move a petition in the Islamabad High Court that this is not a non-conforming use. At CDA is defined as this is a non-conforming use. It means that you are doing trade over in the residential area. But they have moved the petition in Islamabad High Court in front of Chief Justice Amir Farooq. Nowadays he is Chief Justice of Islamabad High Court. So that petition in the High Court from 2016 to 2023, there are multiple hearings regarding that petition. So in 2023, in 24th November, Islamabad High Court has reserved a decision that he will decide that according to the bylaws of CDAs, either it is a conforming use or non-conforming use. And there are different debates in the Islamabad High Court, and I was present at that time when in the hearing of that.
And in addition to this, what about the Higher Education Commission? You know, so what policy do they give away for the universities and the students to kind of abide by?
Right. According to the charter of the HEC, when they allow the university to run the different disciplines, there is a quota of about 20% for hostel purpose. That they will, the specific university will provide a hostel space for students, and when they will construct the building, they will assign 20% of the whole building for the hostel purpose.
But not a lot of universities have got hostels.
But
for example,
unfortunately,
I'm very sorry, but you know, I would certainly want you to complete on the policy matter as well. But I've been to a university, there were no hostels. Berry University, no hostels. There are a lot of universities without hostels, and then there are a lot of universities with hostels as well.
Yes. If we are talking about the universities with the hostel, like Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamic University, and NUST, these are the main three universities. They are having their own hostels because they have a lot of space. If we see the locality of the Quaid-e-Azam University, it's a
huge campus.
Huge campus.
Yes.
So they have the spaces. But right now, according to the, I have told you the economical situation, universities are doing business actually. So university don't want to spare a room where almost 40 students are there in the classroom, and that room they can spare for the hostel purpose, because it's when we calculate the economy of that specific room, hostelized students will provide only maximum 80,000, but they are generating approximately maybe
300,000, 400,000.
60 lakhs, 70 lakh. So this is the basically difference.
60 lakhs.
60 lakhs, because approximately the semester fees of per student approximately
60,
1 lakh.
70,000
No, no,
rupees.
no, 1
it
lakh
has crossed
120.
1 lakh. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, when I was going to
I think
university,
you
my
graduated way
semester
back.
fee was 40,000 rupees.
Yes,
No,
so
that
one
was old
class
times.
can generate approximately 50 lakh revenue, while hostel cannot generate such sort of revenue. So
Exactly.
this is the basically gap.
Yep.
I think as a student, when you are studying in a university, and especially because this was the criticism that was leveled on the UK universities back in 80s, and that was a very socialist
Yes.
criticism, that they're churning out a lot of students without any critical thinking, right? And they're more interested in earning the capital aspect of it, or earning the money aspect of that. And I think we also see this same situation being replicated in Pakistan too. But as an hostelite, as a university student, the first thing that comes into mind is the security when you're looking for the accommodation, right? And especially for and that is why a lot of people prefer in-house or in-campus accommodation or hostels. But we see
I think with boys it's different. They don't like security at all. They're like, let us free, let us go out.
Yes, because they have their own curfews and whatnots, right?
Yeah.
And the accommodations which are not inside the campus, they don't have this sort of curfew thing going on, right? So from this point of view, from the security point of view, especially you mentioned about 3 universities, big universities that have a sprawling campuses, but those universities who don't have, they do offer hostels that are associated with them. So what is the status of those particular hostels?
Now approximately in Islamabad, I guess more than 300 hostels are there. But some hostels are affiliated with some universities through diverse MOU, or because HEC provides different foreign students to the universities, and they are responsible for their accommodation as well. So some universities have MOUs with multiple private hostels.
Right. Yes, of course.
Yeah, and and this practice is all over in the world. If you are living in the UK, students are residing in the residential places.
Right.
Even in the Pakistan,
Right.
Students don't face problem in the Peshawar, in the Rawalpindi, in the Lahore, in the other major cities where there are number of universities. But specifically in the Islamabad, CDA is making a specific crackdown against the hostelized students.
Exactly.
And this is very unfair.
Exactly, and there's one more reason to it as well. That is that, while I was studying in my university, I've seen that, a lot of people would get contracts for their hostels based on the people they knew within the academia as well. So very quickly, while we are at it as well, so you've mentioned about the Higher Education Commission's policy about it, but it certainly does not look like that it is being practiced. Number one, what will HEC do about it if the universities are not following it? And number two, since we are now at this moment talking about universities affiliated with the Higher Education Commission, what about universities where we talk about medical colleges, medicine schools, because I think it happens over there as well.
Yes. Specifically, someone, I don't know the name of the lawyer, they have moved the petition, a second petition in the Islamabad High Court.
Okay.
And according to my best knowledge, they have referred this case to the chairman HEC, that please look into the matter. And this is very hot issue in Islamabad, because approximately more than 1 lakh students from all over the Pakistan are living in Islamabad, including male and female. And this is a very critical problem. And when we are assigning a land to the universities, the HEC must look this matter.
Okay. Wonderful. And what about the second bit of it? What about medical colleges and universities which are affiliated
like
with
that
PMDC?
Typically in the locality of Islamabad, I think there is no medical college. In the Barakou, we have seen one medical college,
IMDC.
but this is out of the CDA region.
Okay.
There at that specific.
So this particular problem relies within the premises of Islamabad,
Yes,
which we call the federal capital of Pakistan.
Yes, but I personally met with the commissioner, Islamabad, deputy commissioner Islamabad. They don't have personal issue with the students, but they are saying you go to the court and get some decision.
Exactly. And
so it's a very controversial situation.
And the court certainly needs to decide. There's one more thing. Now imagine that we're talking about how the students are going to manage to live within the capital territory of Islamabad because of the quota and whatever is going on and the hostels and whatnot. Every single day, you know, other than the summer vacations, every single day it's a challenge to make my way to work because of the fact that the universities are not even offering parking spaces for
Exactly.
the students. I
Exactly.
think that's one of the most hottest issue at this point of time in
my
Islamabad.
God,
You
that's
come
true.
across Air University
Yes.
and Berry University, that's the issue over there.
For that purpose, Commissioner Islamabad, Deputy Commissioner Islamabad, they must ask to the universities. They have arranged some specific gathering in which all representative of universities they must call and ask them to manage these parking spaces, these hostel spaces. So this is the role of the administration.
And you know, this is, I'm going to provide you with an evidence as well because I've studied in Air University. They have plenty of parking space and you would never come across this issue on their bit of it. Now, what happens is that, you know, when we used to go to Berry University, they had particular inbound, you know, parking
Exactly.
place over there, but they have developed or built another building on
Even-
top of that.
Yeah, even
Pushing
they
the
don't
students
have
out. Now all the cars are actually parked on Magla Road or
Yes.
probably in front of the houses of the people who live in F8.
exactly.
That's wrong.
And obviously students do encounter lots of problems because the female students, they have to walk away from the Medina market or from those spaces, that to the universities, and that's a very uncomfortable experience because all sort of people are sitting there and they're often late for their attendance too. So they do face
You
a
have to
lot.
walk like 2 kilometers to make sure that you're going to attend your class. Yeah, I mean,
That's
this
true.
is so horrible.
true. That's
I think that for all of those people who are within at the helm of affairs or within the administration bit of it as well, please make sure that you do not make your students go through such a vigorous walk that too early in the morning. You know, they're already
Right.
running late for the class and the
Exactly.
And
lecture.
especially in the summer seasons, it's very hectic exercise for them because they're sweating and because it's a very uncomfortable
Long hours as
experience.
well,
Yes,
you know.
of course. And obviously the sweltering sun is another factor that is dissuading them. But we hope and pray that
Adil
things
sir
will-
wants to add over here.
Initially, you have asked me about the security purpose or security matter. I'll let you know. Islamabad Police has designed some software named as Hotel I, in which all registered guest houses and hostel, they are managing that data, and each hostel is providing on the daily basis that specific
data.
data to the
Right.
student. It's a basically online software. When some student
For
come
surveillance
to the
purpose.
hostel,
Yes.
they have registered on their specific process and they upload that specific information
those
to
ID
the
cards are going to
hotel
go
I.
to that. Yeah.
So administration actually know what is happening,
Right.
and it's all under their control.
And this is one thing which I've always realized. Administration always knows what is happening.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just that at times that they're able to control it, curb it. At times they're short of resources as well. But thank you so much, Adil bhai,
Thank you so
for
much.
being with us. It's lovely to be in conversation with you. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, me and Haja every single day on PTV World make sure that that we are your voice. So we have voiced your concerns, even from the students bit of it, where you're not able to park your cars within the premises of university and have to walk 2 kilometers. Not just that, that you do
Hostel
not
issues.
have enough hostel spaces over here to live and reside and study peacefully. I think that it needs to be a public-private partnership. They need to come together and solve these issues within the federal territory of Islamabad as well. So thank you so much, Adil Sisa. Wonderful to be in conversation with you. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, from today onwards till the next 2 days, I might not be around. So please make sure that you miss me quite a lot. And Haja, obviously,
Right.
over to you as well. So until
Right.
next
So
time,
until next time, it's a goodbye and we are bidding you farewell. Allah Hafiz and good
good morning.